All right. Hello, everyone. So today we are going to do a bit of like hacking together. Before we do that, so we are going to talk a little bit about documentation in general, but for like a few seconds only. But the real goal of today will be for you to dive into the issues that we have with this documentation, start making some pull requests and practice some of the things that we've learned in the last year about, how to make pull requests and how to ask for reviews and stuff like that. But before we start, I just want to give you a brief walk through the setup so that you understand kind of how it works and how most of, let's say, the documentation system in the Monarch, let's say, universe function. So this here is the obo-academy website. This is like a pure documentation website. Most of our repositories are kind of like hybrids between data models or code and documentation, but that doesn't really matter. The system is most of the time the same. The ontology documentation is based on the exact same framework as this one here, and most of our code repositories also use kind of the same system. So the way that we deal with this, the stack. So there are various different stacks to manage documentation. The stack that we use is called MakeDocs. So I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's a framework that basically allows us to curate our documentation pages using Markdown. And then what it does is with a little configuration. So here you can see a small configuration where we say, okay, this is the name of our website. This is the theme, so the look and feel that we want for the website. These are some of the kind of extensions that we want to have installed here, and then that's a navigation. So we want to use a custom menu structure. So given all of this, we can go and say, dear make docs, which is, I think, implemented as a Python tooling, but I don't really know. It's like as some kind of toolbox. Please use our Markdown documentation pages. So for example, let's say this one here, and generate a nice looking website for me. So just so that you get a sense, under the hood, we have these Markdown pages here. And when we ask MakeDocs to create us a website, this is how this ends up. Actually, not here. So what it will do is it will, anyways, it may be you're able to read. I thought maybe I'm still in the old way of thinking, but I need to check. It will generate basically some nice looking HTML pages from this, and these HTML pages will be, it's here, weird. And these HTML pages will be deployed. Let me just one more time check why I couldn't switch to the GitHub Pages branch.
You were trying to go to a path that doesn't exist in that branch. You should go to the root branch.
Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, so there is this like standard branch, which is GH pages. So that's what we use usually when we seek to use GitHub.io to deploy our documentation. And you can see the structure looks a little bit similar to the Markdown documents that we have in the Markdown structure. And then all of this stuff is generated as HTML pages. So you have, for example, this index HTML page, standard HTML markup. Lots of stuff in here, that is automatic. You can see introduction to OBOK, blah, 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 that is automatically generated from this index.markdown file, which is just this little bit of code. Okay, so that is just so much for how this works. We curate our documentation in Markdown. We have a tool that automatically puts this stuff into HTML, and then we deploy it, and that gets deployed to the the website, in this case, to GitHub.io. And the last piece is that, you know, while you can manually do this conversion and manually deploy this, and back in the days we used to do that as well, we now throughout the boards, and we do this like for every Monarch related repository in general, we have GitHub Actions, tiny GitHub Actions that are highly specialized, that know exactly about the MK docs. And you can see it really just does that. So it looks, is there a change on the master branch of this documentation? You could restrict it just to any change to a markdown file as well if you wanted to, but this is looking for any change on the branch. And then what it will do, it will just rebuild all of the markdown documents to HTML documents, and then push it to the GH pages branch so that it can be deployed on some web server. All right. In the last minute, and then I hand over to Nicole for assigning some tasks to you. I just want to emphasize one thing that is extremely important to especially Nicole's and my kind of way of thinking on documentation. So what we try to everyone to kind of adopt is a way. Sorry? No, anyways, I heard someone scream, but maybe that was a fluke. We try to think about documentation in terms of a framework which is called diataxis, which separates documentation needs into 4 separate categories. So basically all our documentation pages, also around ontologies and so on that we design, we try to separate exactly the categories of tutorials, tutorials as being user-served introductions, that they learn something, that the user learns something new about a subject. You know, you've done the link ML tutorials, the OAK tutorials, and so on. So this is really about training the user. Then we have how-to guides. These are step-by-step instructions of solving specific problems. Here, how do you prettify markdown files using an automated tool, for example? This is one guide. Then we have explanations. These are pages that give us background about certain subjects, like what is an ontology, what is, let's say, a knowledge graph ingestible, what is COSA, what is ODK, all of these kinds of like explainer type stuff. And then lastly, a section which is called reference, where basically you can add things like maybe the reference is more like the what is, let's say, section, where you add things like glossaries and help pages for specific projects. So explanations is really about, you know, making sure that people understand the subject matters that they are interacting with when they are interacting with your documentation. So that is all I wanted to say for now. And now, Nicole, if you want to, I would pass the screen to you, but I would suggest to everyone here that is here now to maybe share your face if you are able to, because I think it's good to do this a little bit more in plenum and have everyone interact on this. And Nicole, I hand it to you if you just want to